Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. Today is the recitation of the 19th pauri or step from Gujari Jaat Gavar, Mahalla Tija, the third Nanak. The recitation. Slok Mahalla Tija, Gujari Jaat Gavar, Jasaho Paye Apna, Gur ke sabad vichar, Anandin har jap japna. जिस सतगुर मिले तिस भौ पवै, सा कुलवंती नार, सा हुक्म पछाणे कंत का, जिसनो कृपा कीती करतार। ओ कुचज्जी कुलखणी, पर हर छोडी भतार, पै पईए मल कट्टिए, निर्मल होवे शरीर। अंतर परगास मति उत्तम होवै, हर जप गुणी गहीर। पै विच बैसे पै रहे, पै विच कमावे कार, इथे सुख वडियाइयां, दरगह मोख दुआर। पै ते निर्भो पाइयै, मिल ज्योति ज्योति अपार। नानक खसमै भावै सा भली, जिसनो आप बख्शे करतार। महला तीजा सदा सदा सालाहियै, सच्चे को बल जाओ। नानक एक छोड़ दूजै लग्गै, साझेवा जल जाओ। पौड़ी अंसा अवतार उपायोन, पाओ दूजा किया। ज्यो राजे राज कमावदे, दुख सुख भिड़िया। ईसर ब्रह्मा सेवदे, अंत तिनी ना लहिया। निर्भव निरंकार अलख है, गुरमुख प्रगटिया। तिथै सोग विजोग न व्यापई, अस्थिर जग थिया। So the first salok is a fairly lengthy one, as saloks go, and in it lies more or less the thrust of this pauri. So the Guru begins by likening the ego mind to a Gujari. A Gujari is the feminine of a Gujar, a milk boy or a milk shepherd. And so therefore a Gujari is a milkmaid. And he refers to her as Gujari Jaat Gavar. Gavar is ignorant, illiterate. So what he's referring to as a low-caste milkmaid, illiterate, is the ego mind. Jahan so paye apna, he says, if such an ignorant ego mind were to seek her husband's self, gur ke sabad vichari, through daily reflection on the Guru's word, anandin har jap japana, then she, the ego milkmaid, the illiterate ego, will begin to comprehend the herself. It will begin to get that knowledge, understand who the herself is. Jis satgur mile tis pau pavai, because one who finds the true enlightener and follows the instructions, what happens to them? One, they are filled with awe and adoration for the self, pau pavai, and sa kulvanti nar, they become enriched with virtue. So you see, a lowly, low-caste Gujari becomes a kulvanti through reflection on Guru Sabad. What that means is wisdom has now illuminated that mind. And what happens then is sa hukam pachane, such a one, the ignorant ego milkmaid, when it is bestowed with compassion. Compassion is knowledge, insight into the nature of the har. Sa hukam pashane kant ka. She understands the order, the natural order of the kant, the husband. Jisno kripa kiti kartar, the one that is bestowed with compassion. And the one who follows the Guru is bound to be bestowed with compassion. Otherwise, it is what it is. Kuchajji, kulakhani, parahar chodi patar. Otherwise, she remains ignorant, remains ill-fated, kuchajji kulakhani, because she has forsaken her beloved self. Bhay paiye mal katiye. So this is emphasizing the necessity for a guru so that we can begin to develop within us a sense of awe, of love, of wonderment. Bhay paiye mal katiye. And with adoration and awe, the filth of the ego is washed away. And the body-mind apparatus is cleansed. Nirmala hove sarir. Sarir is literally the body, but the old cultural symbolism, we believe that there is also a spiritual body wrapped around, or that the physical body wraps underneath it a spiritual body. And perhaps there are multiple layers of such bodies, more subtle bodies. The mind is then enlightened. Antar pragas mati uttam. Reason becomes the supreme instrument of this mind as she meditates on the unfathomable ocean of virtues. Har jap guni gahir. So it's a matter of cultivating virtues, practicing virtues that lead to wisdom. Pair vich baise, pair hai, pair vich kamave kar. Now that mind is anchored in awe, reverence, and is guided by wisdom. That is how such a mind goes about the business of life. Pair vich kamave kar. And so in the present, as it is doing, such a mind finds the gift of peace. Sukha vadhyaya, because you need a quiet mind to be creative. You can't be creative if you have too much going on the mind. It'll simply envelope the creativity that is in you. So the idea is to move aside the swings and pendulum swinging mind and to quieten it so that creativity happens. That, the Guru says, is the door of liberation. You are now at the threshold of liberation. You are free from the limitations of your mind. And that is what mokh is, to continuously be free of the limitations, because this is an ongoing process. You could free yourself of one entanglement and the next one will show up. So this will continue forever. You're simply in a good place. Nanak khasmay pave sa pali, jisno aap bakse kartar, declares Nanak, those who are pleasing to the husband's self, the minds, Nanak khasmay pave sa, are blessed with compassion. So now we've seen that Gujari Jaat Gavar is symbolism for the ego, which is represented as feminine. Now this notion of feminine is deeply rooted in Indian cultural and mythological frameworks, and we ought to take care not to interpret it literally as a gender role or a devaluation of women. It is simply a metaphor to convey the nature of the ego and its role in our lives. So in the Indian traditions, the ego has been seen as an offshoot of Maya. And what is Maya? It is the veiling power of the Creator. It distorts reality, corrupts reality. It gives rise to the world of appearance. So the ego is Maya. and it draws individuals into the web of attachment and desire. And so it is also seen as feminine because it births the world of duality, the world of forms, the world of multiplicity, of cycles, of nature, with which the ego tends to identify. And it is also used as a feminine figure to symbolize seduction and allure in much the same way that men are drawn to women. Now, this was the context in which the feminine ego was seen. But in the context of Sikhi, the feminine ego is actually innate wisdom that has been corrupted by Maya, and so therefore has a chance to transform itself back to its primary nature, wisdom, which is Naam, through Gur Sabad. So when Guru Amar Das says, Nanak khasme pave, whose pleasure are we incurring? And why is that favor being incurred? And why being in favor is the best possible outcome, Sapali? We are actually pleasing what we call the self, which is us. That part of our consciousness, which is steady, which is transcendent, which is unchanging, which represents our presence, if you will, quote unquote, the unmanifest essence that makes existence possible. And the ego is personified as corrupted wisdom because it has intuition, it has nurturing power, it is dynamic, it is active, it is the active principle which manifests whatever we are thinking. So the two have to sync up. That's what is meant by pleasing the self. It's to draw a nice picture, for the mind to be in a pleasant state, serenity. In the second slok is a short one. It says, Sada Sada Salahiya, Sache ko bal jaun, forever and always, live in adoration and praise. And he says, may that tongue burn, which speaks not of oneness, but clings to the language of duality, clings to Maya. Nanak ek chodi duje laga, sa jehva jal jao. And now in the Pori, the Guru is sympathetic. He says, look, ans avatar upayana pao duja kiya. Ans, incarnations. Ans is the self, the creator. Ansa avatar upayan. Incarnated itself. Now this line has been interpreted to mean that it is referring to the avatars like Krishna and Shiva and Brahma and so on. I would say to you that it is actually speaking of incarnation, and we are incarnate. We are the self-incarnate. But Bao Duja Kiya, we cling to Maya, the other. And so did they. Jio Raje Raj Kamamade Dukh Sukh Pidya. We were meant to rule and govern the struggles of life like kings. But we are not. We've gotten entangled. But the assurance is that even Shiva and Brahma, Isara Brahma Sevade Antatini Na Lahya, even they could not fathom the limits of this Maya and this world and this creator. The only way that we can do it is to understand that the fearless and formless one, Nirabhav Nirankar, Alakha hai, is imperceptible. Gurmukh Pragataya, it's made manifest by the Guru's word. And in that realization, in Gurmukh, there is no separation or sorrow. Tate soga vijoga navyapya. The world appears as oneness in that state. As Thir Jagatiya, you want to be in that state. That should be the guiding. That should be, you're the anchor that is guiding. So the anchor has to be stable. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.